Hi everybody, welcome to Edelweiss Chocolates. My name is Daniel Zahir. I am the creative director here at Edelweiss as well as one of the owners. This is my family's business. My family has owned Edelweiss for about 21 years now, nearly 21 years. We have been here in this location since 1942. All of our chocolates are handmade here on site in our factory that's right behind the shop, which I'll take you back into in just a few moments after I tell you a little bit about the business and a little bit about our chocolates. We're doing the podcast today with John Shigarian, but I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an insight into our factory and the chocolates that we make before we begin the conversation with John. So welcome yet again. Now, as you can see here, there's a display case that hosts about 90 different varieties of chocolates that we make. We do them in both milk chocolate, dark chocolate, and some in white chocolate. I like to call them classic comfort chocolates because they're very, very traditional type recipes. We do things like truffles, marshmallows, caramels, turtles, honeycomb, toffees, brittles, you name it and we do it. We do a lot of dipped fruit as well, which are very, very popular with our clients. As you might have guessed, we are gearing up for the Valentine's holiday. So there are lots of very fun things like these foil wrapped hearts that come in all different shapes and sizes, some different candies and confections. And then we have back here a variety of different heart boxes. We haven't put all of them out yet. This is just a small sampling, although it is quite a lot. We do some specialty boxes that are all made by hand. Things, we use fabrics such as velvet and satin and real bows. And so they're really, really beautiful packaging. Valentine's is such a special holiday and we get incredibly busy. So this year, if you're planning on buying chocolates, whether it's from us or from anybody else, I would highly recommend you placing your orders well in advance because most chocolate shops will be extremely, extremely busy, and because of the coronavirus, capacities have been limited. So we, for instance, can't let more than 2 people in at a time. So we are encouraging everyone to place their orders early. Now, we have been here, as I was saying earlier, since 1942. We have a very long list of clientele, very noteworthy people. Some famous notables that I might point out to you guys. These are the vanilla marshmallows that were Madonna's favorite. We have over here the maple creams, which were Frank Sinatra's favorite. We have the dark caramellos that were Stan Lee's favorites. Back over here, we have the French truffle, which was Elizabeth Taylor's favorite when she was alive. And down over here, we have the dark chocolate turtles, which were Katharine Hepburn's favorite once upon a time. And Katharine actually wrote about us in her autobiography where she talked about the turtles. So that's just a little bit of our history, and I am going to take you now back into the factory where we'll talk a little bit about how we make the chocolates. All right, why don't you follow me back?
Great.
Hi, so welcome to our kitchen. We are now at the furthest point all the way in the back of our facility. And this is the space where we cook all of the fillings that go inside of our confections. So everything from our truffles, we make the ganache here in this room, our caramels and our toffees. So all of the bases of the fillings begin in this kitchen. So I'm going to talk with you guys a little bit about the equipment in here. They're mostly original equipment, so I'd say the vast majority of the items in this room are over 100 years old, such as this machine right here, which is one of my favorites that we have in the facility. This is an old Savage Brothers fire roaster, and we use it specifically to make our caramels and our toffee. And it has a date stamp on it that it was manufactured in 1918. So it is just several years over 100 years old at this point. It's a very special machine. The company is still around, but they don't make them quite like this anymore. They're fully automated machines nowadays. Whereas this one is a solid iron and solid steel machine. It's very, very heavy, very sturdy. Never ever broke before, knock on wood. It's still in perfect working order. It's very simple. It's just got a bunch of gears attached to a motor, and then in the basin here, there's a lot of different gas nozzles that basically creates, when fired, it creates an immense amount of heat so that we can make large batches of caramel. And we do caramel and toffee, I would say maybe 2 to 3 times a week because they're very popular, and we use our caramel as an ingredient in several different recipes that we manufacture. Now, the copper kettles are also all original. So there's one in here. I'm not going to take this one out, but I will show you this kettle right here, just so you can see how shiny they are on the inside. And these are as old as the business. Now, if any of you have ever worked with cast iron, you care for your copper kettles much like you would your cast iron. And you need to be very careful with them because over many years of use, they're beautifully seasoned. And what that means is there's a layer of fat essentially on the surface of the copper that protects the metal from oxidation. So it stays nice and shiny, and we can use it for another 70 or 80 years, hopefully. So this stove that's sitting underneath the copper kettle I just showed you, it's a very unique piece of equipment because it is quite old. We don't know 100% how old it is because unlike most equipment of the time, it doesn't have a date stamp on it, but through our research and through some of the detailing on the machine, we've pinpointed that it's somewhere from the Art Deco period. It has some really beautiful detailing on it, on its hand cast iron feet that are very, they're examples of the time from the Art Deco period. Really beautiful piece of equipment. Interesting thing about this machine is the original owner, thinking that it was her most important piece of equipment that she would purchase, she actually bought two of them, thinking, in the event that one of them breaks or she needs to use, the second one for parts, she never has a lag in production. She can, be up and running quickly. Now, what's interesting about it is that the other stove is still sitting in our warehouse. It's never been used, it's never been needed because this one has never had a problem. So again, just a testament to the machinery of the time. They were built to last, and last they have because we're still using them on a daily basis and they work perfectly. Okay. So now that we've moved out of the kitchen where we do where we cook all of the fillings that go inside of the confections, I'm going to take you in to show you some of the equipment that we use to finish, either the cooking process or to cover the items in chocolate. So this machine that I'd like to show you is one that we use to mix our buttercream. So we do several varieties of buttercreams, and what's different about ours that kind of sets us apart from a lot of the other chocolate companies out there, that our buttercreams, because we churn them for about nearly 2 hours with the watchful eye of our chef, they end up very silky, smooth, and creamy, as opposed to a lot of other places where they might be a little more grainy and rough. So we're really looking for a very, very finely executed product here. Now, the way this machine works is it's automated in the sense that the gears turn and there's a motor and it'll spin on its own. And it actually has a core that fills with either hot water or cold water so that we can either make the buttercream softer or firmer depending on at what stage it is in the mixing process. And I just want to show you right here the detailing on this handle. Believe it or not, this is my favorite piece of the part of the equipment because you don't see machinery with fittings like this, like wood and brass fittings. Companies really don't take the time, effort, energy, or invest money in things like that that are purely just for cosmetic reasons or just to show how proud they are of their machinery. So these are things of a bygone era that we really prize in our equipment these days. So this machine right here is a very interesting piece of equipment. You might guess what it is. So this is an industrial mixer. Now, this is a Hobart Classic mixer from the Hobart Company. Now, what's interesting about this is that this model from the Hobart Company is actually the model that inspired the KitchenAid series. Now, KitchenAid was actually started by Hobart as a way of getting basically this big piece of equipment into the hands of every home cook. So it has all of the components that our home KitchenAids have, but much larger than the ones we have in our homes. It even has a space where you can attach place attachments like a grinder or a juicer or a processor can fit right in here. Now, the other difference is the whisk on this is, it's that much larger than my head compared to the one that's in your home. Now, what do we use this machine for? We use this mostly for all of our marshmallows. Our Edelweiss is famous for our line of marshmallows. We have currently 11 varieties that we're making at the moment. Some of them are seasonal, Some of them are everyday recipes, but we do whip them all up in this machine. We also use this machine to whip up things like our peanut butter recipes, our marzipan gets mixed in here, and some other various different things that we make all year. Okay. So this is the oldest piece of equipment we have in the factory, and I'm not sure if you can guess what it is, but it is a grinder. And it's a very old hand crank style grinder. It's a very, very simple piece of equipment, and we use it to grind our nuts and our toffee, our peanut brittle, anything that we need to process down to a smaller size that we'll use in our recipes. We grind right here. Now, this was actually manufactured in Philadelphia in 1870, so it is it's very old and still in proper working order. We use it on a daily basis. And like I said, it's just you feed, let's say the nuts, for instance, into the top. There's the little gears in here that crush the nuts, and then it's just cranked by hand. So this is a very special piece of equipment here that I want to highlight for you guys. Many of our customers who pre-COVID would come to our factory and request a tour specifically came to see this machine because of some fun historical significance that it had. Now, if any of you have watched that famous I Love Lucy Chocolate Factory episode, you'll understand why this is so famous. So this is actually the machine that inspired that episode. Now, Lucy used to be a customer of ours, and she would park in our back parking lot and walk through the facility to get to the front of the shop, passing by this machine regularly. Apparently she came several times a week to pick up chocolate, and on one day as she was walking through, we were training one of our staff members to do the initialing on the tops of our chocolates, and it's a very labor-intensive process that takes a long time to learn. It takes about a year to be trained to get them very clean. Now, what's funny about it is that on the day that Lucy was passing through, this staff member was really struggling to keep up with the chocolates as they came out. And as the story was told to us, chocolate was flying through the air, it was flying, covered the walls, the machine was covered in chocolate, the staff member was covered in chocolate, and Lucy thought it was the absolute funniest thing she had ever seen in her life. And so she, had a light bulb moment and physically spent 3 weeks here in this facility researching the role of what it takes to be a chocolatier and a confectioner. And that was honestly the key to her comedic genius. Lucy didn't leave things to chance. She didn't ad-lib. She wasn't really known for improvisation. She rehearsed and she rehearsed and she rehearsed. And that was, as told to us by William Asher, who was the director of I Love Lucy, that was the single most influential item of her comedic genius. I mean, she really didn't leave things to chance. So I'm going to open up this machine so you can get a little glimpse inside. Now, the way this machine works, it holds about 200 pounds of chocolate in its basin. And once we turn it on, this wheel starts to spin and it pulls the chocolate up from the basin. And there's some little paddles there that direct the chocolate into what will eventually be like a little chocolate waterfall. So centers, the fillings that are too delicate to be dipped by hand, will pass through this machine and they get coated by the chocolate. There's a little air blower in there that smooths out the surface of the chocolate. Then the belt starts to vibrate and shakes off all the excess chocolate from underneath. And then once they get to this position right here, you'll see that there's an open space. This is specifically the area where we do the markings on the tops of the chocolate. So our mint marshmallow, for instance, will have an M on it, so it signifies that it's an M for mint. And this is the space right here where Lucy witnessed the staff member struggling to keep up with the chocolate. So that's why we have her picture up there. One of our customers made this for us and brought this in a couple of years ago and asked us to put it behind the machine, just to decorate it a little bit and to always have Lucy's watchful eye watching over us. So once the chocolates move through this space, they'll end up in this portion of the machine, which is the beginning of a cooling tunnel. Now, this cooling tunnel is very, very long. I won't be able to show you the whole thing because it actually passes through a wall, it goes under some stairs, and it ends up in a back room where I'll show you. And in that room, we actually take all of the chocolates off of the belt. And that is the job that I actually like doing the least, because that's the part where you really have to keep up with the chocolates, because once they're dry and they're ready to come off the belt, the machine doesn't stop for anyone. Those chocolates just keep coming. So, we could potentially have an I Love Lucy moment back there. So this is the end of the cooling tunnel that's attached to the enrobing machine that I showed you guys a little bit earlier. So this is actually where all of the chocolates come out after they've passed through the very, very long cooling tunnel. It actually goes it starts in a different room and it ends up back here. It goes through a wall and under some stairs. And by the time it arrives in this place, the chocolates are all dry and they're ready to be taken off the belt. This machine doesn't stop for anybody, so whoever is working at this end has to really work fast, getting them off the belt and into the boxes as quickly as possible. For me, this is the part that actually reminds me more of the I Love Lucy episode than what I was talking about in the other room, just because, you really have to get them off of that belt as quickly as possible. Hi, so welcome to the back of the shop. So this particular room is where we store the majority of our recipes after they've been made. It's a small room because we make everything in very, very small batches, and that way we can keep our quality control. This is also the room where we pack all of our assorted chocolate boxes. So a box like this, for instance, which is our general dark and light assorted chocolates, it's got a little bit of all of the crowd pleasers in there. We line them up all along this edge, all the boxes, and then from here we take the chocolates as needed. So you can see we store them in these brown confectionery boxes. They're designed specifically for chocolates and confections, specifically to reduce the moisture level so that the moisture doesn't actually get to the product, and that helps preserve the chocolates. Now we keep and store all of our chocolates at a very cool, consistent 67 degrees because we found that that's the optimal temperature to be storing the chocolates. For you guys at home, we never recommend refrigeration. In fact, what ends up happening is if you refrigerate the chocolates or freeze the chocolates, they could get cloudy or they could get speckled or grainy on the top of them, and thus it doesn't really look or feel like a refined piece of chocolate anymore at that point. The best place to store them is in your pantry in a cool, dry place on the inside of the house where the temperature doesn't fluctuate too much and there's no humidity.
Great.
All right, well, I just wanted to say thank you all for coming along this tour with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully, as soon as this pandemic is over and we're able to do in-person tours again, we'd invite all of you to stop by and actually get an in-person view behind the scenes. Now, again, if you guys are planning on ordering any chocolates for Valentine's, I urge you to do it as soon as possible because, again, we will be very, very, very busy and we want to give everybody the best service possible. So thank you for stopping by.